Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Mr. Wiz here. So we have been building video games here on my channel. If you are new to my channel, that's what we do. We build games. Right now, we are in the process of building our first Unity game. This has been a long time coming, and I'm very excited about it, and we're almost done. In the last video, we added points to our game, so that now if I fly around and collect my coins, where is my coin? There it is. Boy, it's hard to see. Okay, I might need to make my coin bigger. But what we did in the last video is we made it so that if we collect coins, the points update. So the last thing really for us to do for this game is to just allow people to win. Because what's the point in making a game if you cannot win, right? So how do we make this? There's simple ways, and then we can get into some more complicated ways if you are up for it. So when we did the points, let me grab my GameManager script here. With the points, we created a score text, and we set it up as a variable here, and then when we ran the update points function, it increased the points by 1, and it updated the score. So I'm thinking a simple way we can do it is to just have the text in our game change when we win. So right now I have two text boxes. I have the score text, and then I have the instructions text, which says collect all the coins. So the simple way I could do this, if I wanted to, was to just change the collect all the coins screen into a message that says you win. So if I wanted to do that, that'd be pretty straightforward. I would do it very similarly to how I did this last one. So I could put a new variable here for another text mesh pro, because this works the same way as the last one, UGUI, and I can call this a win text. And then down here, when it updates, when do I want it to say, you win? That's really the real question here. When do I want that to happen? So I need to create an if block. If, parentheses, and I'm moving kind of fast for this part because this is not our first if block. And I've got my brackets. So here's my if. I need to figure out what the condition is, and I need to figure out what the result is. What is the action if the condition is true? Well, the action is going to be similar to what I put here, but we're going to have, instead of score text, we're going to use the new variable win text. So I need to write it the same way I wrote it up there. Win text dot text equals and quotes, and this will replace my message. Right now it says collect all the coins. Instead, it's going to change to say, you win. So what is the condition? What is the condition that's going to cause it to do this? Well, I have to get a certain number of points. So right here, when I hit the update points, the score goes up. So if the score equals a certain amount, that's when I want to win. So here's something interesting about C#. We haven't done this before. When you're comparing things, when you do equals, you don't just use a regular equal sign. So the regular equal sign in C# means that you're changing information. So when we put score equals 0 at the on start, we are setting the score to 0. And down here, when we're adding stuff and changing things, the equal sign is basically resetting it. What we're doing now is a comparison. We're asking, is it equal? Not make it equal. So if the score is equal, so to do that equal comparison, we use two equal signs. So a double equal there. If the score is equal to, and then I just put however many points I want to win, right? So for the sake of testing it, let's just make it 1 to make it easier for myself. So when the score equals 1, the text should change to say you win. I'm going to go ahead and copy and save this. Control S to copy. Hopefully there's no typos. Okay, I do have an error message. It says, I forgot my semicolon. Did I really forget my semicolon? Yes, I did. After the you win, I have to put my semicolon. Silly me. You'd be amazed how often I make that mistake. All right, so getting rid of the semicolon, it is updating now. There we go. So now I just need to hit the coin one time. I do have a hard time hitting this coin, so I'm going to update it real quick here. In my prefabs, where I made my coin, I'm going to update the prefab and just make this coin a little bit larger. How big should I make it? Maybe 3 times as big, maybe 5 times as big. Let's try that. I should have an easier time hitting it now that it's 5 times as big. Save that change. All right. There it is. I can see it a little bit better too. Woohoo! And I got an error message. Object reference not set to an instance. Oh my gosh, I did this again. So I created the variable, but I forgot to set it. So in the game manager, my win text currently says none. I have to put my instructions block in there because that's the one that I want to change. Duh. Silly, silly me. I could have, if I wanted to, put the score text in there. And then instead of saying score equals whatever, it would say you win. So I could have that one. It's really up to me which text I decide to change to you win. But let's try this again. All right. I keep forgetting silly things, but that's okay. Everybody does it. Woohoo! There you go. You see how it changed the message at the bottom? It now says you win. So that's the easy way to create a win screen. You can do that. A more complicated way of doing it is we could have a separate box altogether that pops up only when you win. So let me show you that way, and you can decide which way you want to go. So I'm going to undo the work I just did because we're going to do it a little bit differently now. I don't want to undo everything because I still want to keep the score part. So I'm going to change this, get rid of that, and I'm going to get rid of the variable that I made because we're not going to use that. All right. So instead what we're going to do, now like I said, it's up to you. If you like that way, keep it. That's fine. But if you want to do something a little bit different, a little bit more complicated, we're going to create a new text box. So here in the canvas, I'm going to right click. I'm going to go to UI, Text Mesh Pro, and I'm going to create a new screen that just says you win. Let me name it win text. And I can put a space here because it's not a variable. All right. And then in text input, I'm going to put you win. And now I can, of course, edit it to look how I want it to look. I can make it nice and large. I can make sure that it's centered. I kind of like that position right above my plane. That looks pretty good. Let's change the font. Do I want to use the same font I used before, or should I use something different? Actually, that's not bad. I'll stick to the original since that's what I'm using everywhere else. Okay, so I've got a you win screen right there in the middle. I'm going to anchor it to the center. It's already anchored in the center, okay. These position blocks right here, if I didn't talk about these last time, this is basically saying how far away your box is from the center. So since I want this centered, I need my X to be centered, right? So if the Y is not centered, it's not that big of a deal because maybe I want it to be a little bit higher up. Oh no, that didn't change anything. Oh, that's because I meant to grab the arrow. There we go. So if I move it with the arrow, you'll see that the Y is changing, right? But 0 means that the text box is centered in the middle of the screen, which works good for me for my X and my Y. All right. So I've got the text in the middle of my screen. Right now, if I play it, though, that text is always on the screen, and I only want that text to appear when I actually win. So how am I going to do that? Okay. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to disable the text. So up here in the inspector where I have my win text, I'm going to disable it. We've disabled things before when we had something in our world that we didn't want to use anymore. But disabling it doesn't remove it from your game, it just turns it off. And the thing is, when you turn something off, that gives you the ability to turn it back on. So we have the win text, it is turned off. How do we turn it on when we want to use it? So I'm going to go back into my script, and where I made my if block here, we're going to put a new line of code instead that will tell us to turn on that box we just turned off, okay? And just now I'm realizing that I probably shouldn't have deleted the box up here. I actually do still need that. Oh good, I can just undo it. So we're going to use this Text Mesh Pro still. I forgot I still need to create the variable, but this time we're using the one I just created. Okay, So the variable is going to be called WinText. So we're going to go ahead and put that down here. WinText, I'm spelling it the same way I made it, dot, and then I'm going to put GameObject with the lowercase g, capital O, dot, set active, all caps, parentheses, true. So what this line is saying is we're going to take the variable, that TextMesh Pro that we're going to be saving in a minute, if I remember this time, TextMesh Pro, and we're going to be taking that game object and we're going to be turning it on. We're going to be activating the object that is currently disabled, that is currently inactive. All right, so let's save this change here. Control S. Let's go back into this and let me make sure that I remember in the Game Manager to set up WinText. So instead of having WinText for my instructions, I'm going to set the WinText up as the WinText box that we just made. Okay. Here's the test. Let's see if it works. If I collect my 1 point, the You Win screen should appear in the middle of my screen. And it did! Woohoo! So those are your two different ways to create a win screen. I would definitely use one of them. I like the one where it pops up in the middle of the screen, but if you wanted to just have some text in your screen change instead, you could have the scores change, you could have the collect all coins change. That's really up to you. Now, of course, in the Game Manager script, make sure that your if is set to whatever number you actually want to win the game. In fact, you might want to set up a variable for it. Let's go ahead and do that. So remember, if you make it a public variable, it'll be easier for you to update later. So I'm going to make it a public integer variable, and I'm going to call this points to win. Capitalizing the 2, capitalizing the win. And if I do that, I can change the score to whatever that variable is. Points to win. I can save that. I can go back into my program. In my Game Manager, I've got this new one, and now I can just change it from here. So if I wanted to win with 5 points, it'll take 5 points now to win. If I wanted it to take 10 points to win, I can put that there. So as I'm updating my game, I can easily change how many points I want to players to have to use in order to win. So how many coins are in my world right now? Right now, I have 6 coins in my world. So if I wanted to make people collect all of them, I would, of course, put 6 there. But yeah, so have fun. Make sure your game is working. Make sure you have a win screen. And now if you want to go an extra step, I'll show you something fun here where we can allow people to start the game over. You ready to do that? Do you want to do that? This is really optional. It's up to you. But if you want to, I can show you how to create a restart button, a play again button, if you will. All right? Oh, look, you're still here. I guess that means you want to make a button. So let me show you how it's done. It's actually not that complicated. So in our canvas, we're going to right click on our canvas and we're going to go down to UI. And instead of adding text like we have been doing, we're going to go down here to where it says Button TextMesh Pro. So we're adding a TextMesh Pro button. I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And it's going to create a button here in the middle of my screen. There it is. You can see it. Now, of course, I can move this to wherever I want to put it. Let me temporarily turn my WinText back on. There it is. And I'm going to do that. That way, when I move my button, I can see where it sits in relation to the WinText. I want it to be a little bit below the WinText. So like right about there is probably pretty good. And it is already centered on the middle of the screen, which I like, so that's fine. I can leave that the way it is. Let me turn WinText back off now so I don't forget later. Okay, so the button. I can edit things about the button, including the shape. So up here where it says UI Sprite, there are other shapes if you prefer. I usually kind of leave it the way it is. I like the default shape. You can change down here things like the color of the button. So you have a normal color, you have a highlighted color. So, ooh, yellow is actually kind of good. I like that. You have pressed color. So pressed color means the color it changes to when you click it. So a lot of buttons, when you change them, they'll become a different shade. So maybe they might become a little bit darker, something like that, right? I can change what the button says. Where's the part that has the text for the button? I know it's in here. Am I not seeing it? Where is the text for the button? Oh, right. I have to click on the arrow. There we go. The text is hidden underneath the button. Click on that, and here I can change what the button says. So maybe I want to say play again. Question mark? All right, so that's pretty good. And of course, just like before, I can change fonts for that if I wanted to. I can change all sorts of things about the button if I want to get fancy with it. What would it look like if I put the, oh yes, I love that Bangers font. That's just a fun game font. All right, so now I have a nice play again button that should appear in the middle of my screen. So I just need to program it, make it work, and also make it come up when it's supposed to come up, right? So I've got the button, and I've got it looking good. I just need it to work correctly. So I only want to pop up at certain times. So just like with the win text, I am going to disable my button. So I'm going to go ahead and check that box up there, and it disappears. So I need it to come back at the right time. So let's go back into the GameManager script. And if I want it to happen after they win, this is when the win text comes up. I can put, oh, my head's messing up with my clicking. There we go. After the win text comes up, I can hit enter, and I can create the line to activate the button. So I do need to create the variable for the button up here. Public button. And then what should I call this? The restart button, maybe? Semicolon. Oh, and I almost forgot. There is a new library that we're going to need when we're using buttons. So just like we've added the TM Pro, we have to add a new library using Unity Engine .ui, semicolon. All right, so UI, of course, stands for user interface. So using the user interface library, they will now know what a button is. All right, so we're creating a variable for the button. And then down here, we're going to put restart button, spelling it the same way I spelled it when I created my variable. Dot, and then just like up here where we did this other stuff, we're going to do game object dot set active parenthesis true. Close it with a semicolon. And let's save that with Control S. So I think I covered all my bases here. We have the variable. We're activating it down here when we win the game. Okay, so let's go back. Is there any error messages? No error messages, good. In my game manager, I do need to assign the button. So it says restart button none. So I got to go ahead and grab my button and put it in there. There we go. All right. To points to win, let's change it back to 1 so I can test it quickly and easily. So once I get this 1 coin, it should say that I'm win, and then the restart button should appear. There we go. And now if I click play again, nothing happens because I haven't coded the button yet. That's okay. We'll get there in a second. All right. So if we go to the button over here in our code, there actually is an on click, and this is where we would put the function that we want to run when I click the button. So what function do I want to run when I click the button? Well, I haven't made it yet. So let's go ahead and make a new function. I told you this was a little bit more complicated, but it's nothing too hard, nothing we haven't really done before. So I'm going to create a new function here. Public void. Let's call this function restart game. And I'll put my pair of brackets. And here I can put what I want to happen when I press the button. When I press the button, I want the game to restart. Yeah, that's interesting. Don't we already have a code to make the game restart? Yeah, we did one when we crashed into the mountains, right? So let's go take a look at that code. In my player control script, we wrote this script for when we crash into the mountains. Now remember, this also only works if you use this library. So we'll need to put both of these lines in my new script. Thankfully, I can actually switch between them real quickly just by clicking on these tabs up here. So I'm going to take this line of code. I'm going to copy it, Control C. Whoop, what did I just do? I just dragged it. I didn't mean to do that. Undo. All right, we're going to copy it, Control C. I did not mean to drag. All right, go to GameManager. I'm going to put that in here. And then in order for the code to understand it, I need to add the new library up here. And that library was this one. Control C to copy. Control V to paste. Let's save this. All right, so now I have a function in my GameManager that's just called restart game. And it should restart the game the same way that crashing in the mountains restarts the game. All right, so let's go back to our stuff here. No error messages, great. I'm going to click on the button. Where it says on click, I need to tell it to run that function. So I'm going to click the plus sign to add something to it. Right here it has object none. I need to put my game manager in there because the function I'm running is a game manager function. So I'm going to drag my game manager as the object. So here's kind of the new stuff. This is the new part because we've never used buttons before. Everything up until now has been pretty much the same. So I dropped it in the button on click, and now it wants to know what function. What function do I want it to run from the game manager? If I click on this, there are some like pre-made function type deals in here. But if you go down to the bottom where it says game manager, we have update points right there, which is a function we've made before. But if you look, there's my restart game function. So it added it to the list. So when I click on the button, it should run my restart game function, which restarts the game. So let's test it. There we go. I win. Play again. If I click play again, it restarts the game. It works. It absolutely works. That's pretty cool. Now, if you wanted to, it wouldn't be hard to take this same idea, and if you could even apply this to when you crash. So instead of auto restarting, like it is right now when I crash in the mountains, I could change that and make it so I just get like a you lose screen. and have to restart that way. I kind of feel like doing that. If you want to stick with me a couple more minutes, I'm going to do that. So right now I'm looking at my game manager. Over on my player controller side, when I crash, it's right here, and this is what causes it to restart. Instead of doing this, I want to run that function that we made. Now the cool thing is I already have my player controls connected to my game manager because I've used it before. So I'm just going to tell it to go to game manager and then run the function called, what was my function called again? Restart game is what I called it. Okay. Restart game. And now when I crash, the button should come up. But what should my plane do? Because while the button's on the screen, the plane will just be flying through things. So I'm thinking I should also disable the controls for the plane. Disable this movement. So if we look at our movement controls, they're all based on these variables that I made. Flying speed, turning speed, rotating speed, rising speed. So let's just set those all back to 0 when I crash into something. This will just take me a moment. Flying speed equals 0, semicolon. Turning speed, I need to make sure I spell all these correctly, equals 0, semicolon. Rotating speed equals 0, semicolon. And rising speed will equal 0, semicolon. And I don't know why I made those extra lines. Let me delete those. Okay. So now when I hit an obstacle, the restart game button should appear. Wait, no. Did I do that right? Restart game function causes the game to automatically restart. No, I don't want that. I want the button to appear. I want the game object to appear. I did that wrong. Okay, so let's change that. I don't want to automatically restart the game. I want it to bring the button up. Okay. So I need to use the variable I need to do this part. This is the part I need to do. Okay. Copy. Paste. And this will only work if I set up a button. And I set up the button using this variable here. Copy. Paste. I know a lot of steps here. I thought this was going to be real quick and simple, but I forgot about a couple of these steps. So in the player section now, wait, did I forget to save? Oh, I'm missing the library. The button requires that special library, remember? So I need to add this library. Copy. Paste. There we go. Restart button, none. We're going to put the button in there. Okay, so when I crash now, the plane should stop moving because I set all the variables back to 0, and the button to restart the game should appear. Does it work? Oh, I shouldn't have won. I should have crashed. Hold on. I forgot to crash. Boom! It crashed. Wonderful. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. If I hit play again, does it restart? Yes, it does. Now, I guess technically I could have a lose screen, similar to how I did on the GameManager. So I could do something like this and have a lose screen appear if I wanted to. But you guys gotta get the idea. You would just do basically the same thing we did with the win text, but do it with the lose text, right? So I won't make this video any longer. I hope you learned something new today. If you did, make sure you click that like button. If you're not already subscribed, please subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.